Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is CHAGGIGA Daf Chaf Beis. We were holding 6 lines from the top on the Omid. Yesterday's Bat discussed the concept of Kli b'tich Kli. It's the first item in the Mishnah. Can you stack one Kli inside the other and do Tefillah? Well, it depends what for. In preparation of a carbon, you may not do so. For Truma, it's okay. And why not for a carbon? We have 2 pshatim. Rabbi Yehuda, chatzitza. It might be too tight and create that barrier between the Kli and the water. The mikveh water might not come into contact where the kelim meet each other inside. This is a chatzitza concern. Rava tells us, no, it's unrelated to chatzitza. Rather, the gzera is, the concern is that he might be using a narrow Kli. A Kli whose mouth, whose opening is too narrow to allow proper flowing, proper connectivity between mikveh and water inside the Kli. The minimum shear for that opening must be kishvay feres hanoi, the size of a cylinder, some sort of straw used to draw water out of the noid of the leather pouch, which the Gemara determines to be kishtei etzbois, about 2 finger widths wide. So a circle with a diameter of a bit more than 2 fingers. That is the minimum size for that hole between the 2 bodies of water. And that's considered a connection. So if he uses a Kli b'tich Kli, that outside Kli might be too narrow to allow for proper flowing of water, for proper connectivity, in which case the water inside the Kli is really disconnected from the mikveh outside. It's considered mayim she'uvin, drawn in the Kli, which are disqualified for use for Tefillah. So according to Rava, that's why we disallow any sort of Tefillah of Kli b'tich Kli, on account of that concern. Says the Gemara 6 lines from the top. Ma'ika, ben de Rava, or the Rav Yehuda, is there any halachic nafkamina between the 2 pshatim, whether it's a chatzitza concern or a shvei feres hanoid concern about the narrowness of the connection, of the opening of the Kli? Ikib, now there is a nafkamina, salva gargusni. You have a large basket, or a gargusni, which is a very large basket used as a strainer. Rashi says they would run the wine through it, wine out of the wine press. It would strain the inedibles. And this type of utensil is very wide. You never have a narrow sal, a narrow gargusni, right? So in this case, shemilon kelim v'yitbilon, you fill them with kelim and put them into the mikveh that way. Lamanda mishum chatzitza ika, according to Rav Yehuda, Kli b'tich Kli is unacceptable because of a chatzitza concern, because of the tightness, because it weighs down on the outer Kli and there's a barrier formed over there. So even by a sal v'gargusni, the same concern applies. But according to Rabbi, who presented the reason, the concern for Kli b'tich Kli, as follows, that it might lead to, next time we hear, he'll take a machat, a little needle, tzinorius, little forks, little utensils, and in order to keep them safe and sound, he might put them into another Kli and put the entire concoction into the water. So he might be matbil is machtem tzinorius b'kli she'ein bo k'sheferes hanoid, b'kli she'ein b'piv k'sheferes hanoid, in a Kli whose mouth is too narrow, doesn't conform to sheferes hanoid, it's less than 2 finger widths wide, which basically disconnects the water within it from the water in the mikveh. And on account of this concern, we disallow any sort of tefillah of Kli b'tich Kli. According to Rava, well, this wouldn't apply in our case of a sal v'gargusni, because these things are usually wide. Sal v'gargusni she'ein bepian k'sheferes hanoid leka. We never find a sal or gargusni with such narrow mouths. So the gzera doesn't apply. In fact, Rava follows his own shita stated elsewhere. Dama Rava, sal v'gargusni shemilon kelim bid bilan tahir. If he took a sal or gargusni, filled them with kelim, and put them to make that tahir, what's the concern? Gzera that he might use a Kli with a narrow mouth. You never have a narrow sal, a narrow gargusni. Rabbi continues, however, if you take a sal and gargusni and run it right through the mikveh, right in the middle of the mikveh, you split the mikveh into two parts, and the sal is higher than the mikveh. Right? It reaches above the water level. So you effectively split that mikveh into two, and on each side you have less than a sheer water, less than the required measure of water for the mikveh, less than 40 sa. If you use that water, you're not yotzer. You're not tevel. Because here he split the mikveh into two. He ran that sal right across the middle, from side to side, from top to bottom. He separated between two sides of the mikveh, disqualified for use. Now you might ask a question. This sal is not solid material. This gargusni is perforated. So why can't both sides of that mikveh connect to each other through the sal? The answer is, that doesn't work. Because really the entire earth is full of channels and streams and holes. Nobody's going to say, well, a little puddle of water anywhere inside planet Earth is is considered 40 sa. What do you mean? It is, because it's somehow connecting deep down. There's lots of channels and water systems running below the surface of the earth. Right? That's why when you dig down, you find water. Because we have all these underground channels running to and fro, and ultimately they connect to a greater river somewhere at the end of the road. So why don't we consider every stream, every puddle, every bottle of water in the ground as though it's 40 sa? No, we require 40 sa in one spot, even though ultimately they all connect to some large body of water. It doesn't help because it's disconnected. In order to connect two bodies of water, you need ishfeferes hanoid. You need to have a wide enough connection. The channel has to be at least 2 finger widths wide. That makes for an effective connection between two pots of water. This mikveh has been split along its middle through a sal, a gargusni. So although the sal has holes and perforation, it doesn't matter because it's not wide enough. It's not sheferes hanoid. Oh, says the Gemara, you meant to know. When we say kli b'tech, kli doesn't work. Because the outer kli needs to be sufficiently open. It needs to allow enough of a flow, a sheferes hanoid amount of water. That's if the outer kli is tar. And it's trying to be tevel the inner kli, which has now been disconnected from the mikveh because the mouth is too narrow to connect the two waters outside and inside of the kli. I will be kli tummy, but let's say the kli itself is tummy, and you're putting another kli tummy inside it, then it works. Irrespective of how narrow that mouth is. You know why? Since tefillah is being applied to the entire outer kli, we treat both kelim as though they're one kli, one unit. It's one package deal. Salkalu nami lekelim isbei. The tefillah is effective even with respect to the kelim embedded in the outer kli. So if the outer kli is tar and not in need of tefillah, he's just trying to immerse the inner kelim, and the inner kelim are now disconnected because the mouth of that outer kli is too narrow to allow for a proper connection between the mikveh and the water inside, then you have a problem. But if the outer kli is also included in the tefillah process, it's also tummy and in need of tefillah. So you're being tevel the entire thing with the inside, with the outside, with the kelim. Everything goes together. It's like one kli. This none. Kelim shemilan kelim b'idbilan. If you took a kli, filled it with more kelim b'idbilan, and immersed the entire thing, hara'elu tahirim. It works. But if you didn't tevel it, maim hamuravim. So when you want to mix two bodies of water together, you want to connect two bodies. How do you connect it? It only works if the channel that's connecting the two bodies of water is wide enough, like a sheferes hanoid, as we explained earlier. Now, what does this Mishnah mean? What do you mean he didn't? He was tevel. He just said he was tevel the kli with other kelim inside. He meant like this. He meant, well, it depends if the outer kli needs tefillah or not. That's what he meant. So if the outer kli that contains the kelim inside is in need of a tefillah, then we view it as one package and it's all fine. But vim einoi tzorech lahatpila, if the outer kli is not in need of tefillah, he's tar, and he contains kalim inside himself, but the mouth, the peh of that outer kli is not wide enough to allow for proper flow of water, proper connection. Or umayim muravan, you have two separate bodies of water. There's another example. Each one holds only 20 saw. You're trying to connect those two bodies of water. So in either case, again, either if the outer kli is not in need of a tevilah and he's holding inside him kalim, but they're being blocked because the channel is not wide enough, or if you just have two bodies of water and you want to connect them and make them to one mikvah, you must follow the principle of a sheferes hanoit. Ache yu muraven kishvei feres hanoit. Okay, so bottom line is, according to Rava, we're concerned about a narrow mouth, and that's why we don't allow tefillah of a kli inside another kli. When does this concern not apply? We came up with two examples. By a salva gargusni, which never have narrow mouths. They're wide open. Or in a case where the outer kli is in need of a tefillah. So we view the outer kli and its content as though it's one package and the tefillah works. You should know that this question of how to learn our Mishnah, Rav is Mahalach, and Rav Ila's Mahalach, which we had yesterday, he's concerned about chatzitza. Right? So these two pshatim, in explanation of the first halacha of the Mishnah, why don't we do kli b'tei kli, either chatzitza based or sheferes hanoid concerned, Tanoi is really a machlekes Tanoim. The Sanya, sal v'gargusni, shemilon kelm v'edvilon, takes a sal, a gargusni, fills them with kelm, and is told the entire thing. Bein l'kodesh, bein l'truma tahir. Those kelim are now deemed tahir, whether for kachim, whether for truma. Why? Tanakama follows Rava's explanation. The concern by kli b'tei kli is because of that narrow mouth possibility. A salva gargusni never contained that concern, and therefore it works. Abba sholai mer no. If you took kalim and you immersed it inside a salva gargusni into the mikveh, it works for truma because kli b'tei kli is effective for truma, but not for kachim. Why? Abba Shol learns like Rabbi Yehuda. Is a chatzitza concern. What difference does it make if it's this kli or that kli or a sal or gargusni? Fact is, the kalim are tightly stacked. Doesn't work for kachim. Okay, continues the Gemara. We don't understand what's going on. We're concerned about chatzitza. We're concerned about a disconnection from the mikveh, whether according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rav, whatever the reason is. Why is this chashash only for karbonis and not for truma? This is a real concern. An improper tefillah doesn't work for truma either. Hihachi truma nami. Why don't we have the same concern for truma? Leman Kamrina answers the Gemara, who are we speaking for? Who are we instructing? Who's coming to ask us this shayla? Does this tefillah work or not? Who's speaking? Who's asking? Chaverim. Chaver is a term for a fellow who keeps higher standards. He's coming to ask. And Amaretz is not concerned about these things, right? So the Chaver is coming to ask the question. Chaverim made the yadi. Well, the Chaver who's asking is knowledgeable. He's well versed in these halachas. So when it comes to Truma, he'll know. He'll know that he has to make sure that it's not stacked tightly. He'll know that it has to be wide enough to allow proper flow of water. What do you mean? Then when it comes to preparing for karbanos, there's no concern there as well. He's well versed. He's knowledgeable. And says the Gemara, Chazli Amaretz. True, we're not concerned about the Chaver who's knowledgeable, but you know what happens when the Chaver does this? He stacks kalim in his tevlet. The Amaretz who observes him, who's looking for him, who's looking and watching him, he's going to imitate him. He'll do the same. He'll stack kalim by him. You never know what's going on. Maybe it's tight. Maybe it's going to lead to a case of a narrow mouth. So that's why we don't allow even a chaver to do kli b'tei kli for kachim. Well, truma nami chazla ma'aretz vazla matbel. So then by truma as well. You're not concerned about the chaver per se. You're concern is that Amaretz might be observing him and might imitate him. So when he's doing tefillah for truma, same concern applies. Amaretz is watching him. He'll do the same when he's matbil for his truma. Lo mekablina minayu. Who takes truma from Amaretz? Nobody takes truma from Amaretz. So even if he does kli b'tech for truma, no harm will come. Well, kodesh nami lo nekabel minayu. So when it comes to karbanos, you are concerned. Don't allow anybody to do kli b'tech kli. Even the chaver can't do it because the Amaretz might follow suit. What's the concern? Don't accept kachim material from Amaretz. Havi le'eva. It's going to create animosity and machlekes. You can't not accept karbanos material from Amaretz, and therefore you have to be careful that the Amaretz will not be led to do things which are unacceptable. You have to make sure that his carbon material is properly prepared, and therefore we avoid doing anything that can create some sort of complication with the Amaretz's kachim material. So when it comes to kachim preparation, we're careful. We avoid kli b'techli. Well, truma nami havi le'eva. So you have to accept it. His nesachim, his karbanis. You're concerned about animosity and machlekes. So how could it be that by truma you avoid the Amaretz? You don't accept from him animosity. Well, yechbasle, he doesn't care. So Amaretz doesn't care if you don't accept his truma. He'll give it to somebody else. He'll give it to his friend, Amaretz Kayin. The Azal Yarvele, the Kayin Amaretz Chavrei, will give it to his friend, the Kayin Amaretz. When it comes to Kachim, there's only one address, the Beis HaMikdash. We don't accept it, it's going to create Eva. So you have no choice, you have no alternative. You have to accommodate the Amaretz as well. So that's why we take extra precaution. We don't do Kli b'tech bar Kachim because we want Amaretz to do the same. This will ensure that his karbanis are kaddish. His karbanis are properly guarded and tahar. Uman tana dechayish la'eva. Where do we find that there's a tana concerned about this eva, this animosity element? Rabbi Yossi, the Sani. Oh, Rabbi Yossi. Why is it that we find the following halacha? Hakoil ne'emanin al taras yain v'shemen kol yemes Hashem. Throughout the year, we accept wine, oil from even an Amaretz. Throughout the year, not just during Yom Tov. When it comes to carbon material, we accept from Amaretz. Typically, Amaretz is not ne'eman. It's not trusted when it comes to Tumah v'Tahara. So why do we accept? Kedei, for this very reason. Kedei shelo yehei kol echad ve'echad hoylech uboyne bama la'atzma. We don't want the Amaretz to go disconnect from our religion, create his own religion, make a new bama, make a mizbeach and be makriv there. He'll feel rejected. If we don't accept him here, he'll go find an alternative. With to be makriv his karbanos. V'serev paraduma la'atzma. If we don't include him in all these communal experiences, paraduma, etc., he'll make his own paraduma. So when it comes to communal institutions, you have to include everybody, all elements of Klal Yisrael. Amar Papa. Likewise, Kaman mekablinan ha'idna sa'adus me'amaretz. In accordance with whose shita do we trust the testimony presented by Amaretz? Because there are those that hold that you don't believe in Amaretz. We do. Kaman Rabbi Yossi. Again, in line with Rabbi Yossi, we're concerned about Eva. We don't want the Amaretz to go in despair. He'll go create his own, establish his own court system. We don't want that to happen. So we have to respect them. We have to include them in all of our communal institutions. Okay, so bottom line is, we are not matbel kli b'tech kli when it comes to kachim. We're concerned not about the chaver who's coming to ask. He knows. He'll be careful to avoid chatzitza. He'll be careful with the shiferes hanoid halacha. Problem is the Amaretz who's observing him might imitate what he's doing and might do it wrong. So when it comes to truma, we're not concerned because in any case we don't accept the Amaretz's truma. But when it comes to kachim, we have to accept it. So we have to ensure that it's done properly. Says the Gemara, fine, you don't accept truma from Amaretz, but you surely borrow his kalim. It's common practice amongst Jews to borrow each other's kalim. We're going to see in the following Mishnah. We're going to prove this point all the way down to the middle of Amud Beis. We're going to prove this point that people borrow from each other. So although we don't accept his truma, we don't eat his truma, but we borrow his kalim and we use it for truma. So how can you be toivel kli b'toich kli in the presence of an amaretz? He might imitate. He might not do it properly. In which case his kli is tummy, and then you're going to borrow his kli. So we're going to proceed with a whole discussion here. We're just going to prove this point. Just this one point that we do borrow from the amaretz. This is going to take us all the way to the middle of Amr Beis. I'm going to get back to our discussion, but in the meantime, we're going to get sidetracked, so to speak, into another Mishnah, into the whole debate between Misham and Basilo. But again, let's just keep focused. We're trying to prove this one point that we borrow kelim from an amaretz, and that's the basis for our kasha now. So that should pose a concern. You can't be toivel anytime if it's kli b'toich kli, because the amaretz might follow suit, in which case his kli will become tummy, and how can you borrow it from him? So where do we find that we borrow kelim from our amaretz? Why aren't we concerned about borrowing? This is not. Kli cheres matzal ala koil. Divrei Beis Hillel. A kli cheres can protect anything, according to Beis Hillel. So we have two examples. Rashi says it can either be speaking about the halacha of tzomed pasel. There's a mace in a home. There's tum in a home. You have a kli cheres, a clay kli, which is totally sealed. It protects anything within it from that tum. That's one example of the kli cheres matzal ala koil. Or, as Rashi says, let's say there's tum on floor 1. You have another floor on top of it. Between both floors of that home, you have a gap, some sort of skylight. And on that skylight, on that aruba, on that window, on that opening, you have a kli cheres sitting there. And we know that the exterior, the gaboy, the back of the kli cheres, deflect tumah. So it's sitting on that window. That protects anything, any item found in that second floor. It presents a barrier. It doesn't allow the tumah to rise into the second floor. Kli cheres matzal ala koil. Divrei Beis Hillel. It's going to Beis Hillel. Whatever's in the kli that's sealed, or it's in the second floor, protected by that kli sitting on the. Whatever the case is, it effectively protects anything, whether it's utensils, food, drink. B'shama Eimrim, no. It protects some things, but not others. Ein matzal ela al oichlim bal mashkim. It protects food, drink, or other klei cheres, but not something called klei shetef. It's called klei shetef because you rinse it, you put it in the mikveh like a metal klei. When it comes tummy, put it into the mikveh. So it doesn't protect that type of klei. Only food, drink, or klei cheres. Amru lahem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. What's going on? How can you have that selective approach here? Why is it that the kli cheres is going to protect food, drink, and kli cheres, but not regular kelim? Amr Beis Shammai. You know why? Because we're speaking about a kli which belongs to Amaretz, which is considered, for practical purposes, we consider like it's tameh, because he's not careful, he's not well versed in the halachas. So this kli cheres that's trying to protect is really tummy, and we know that a kli which is tummy can't protect. The tumah shoots right through it. Ve'en kli tummy choytet, it can't protect. Omer lam Beis Hillel, okay, I accept that, but didn't you say that the kli cheres is protecting food or drink which it contains? Well, if it's tummy and it can't protect, why is it protecting food and drink? You know why? When we consider this kli cheres a sufficient protection for food and drink, we motar it only for the sake of the Amaretz. It benefits the Amaretz. He's the only one eating and drinking his food. Nobody's taking from him. The chaver never takes his food and drink. He doesn't trust him. There's nothing you can do with food and drink. Can't be toivelit. The chaver keeps far away from the Amaretz's food and drink. So what's the worst thing we're doing? We're telling the Amaretz that his food and drink is tar. In any case, he doesn't pay too much attention to Tumah v'Tahara. The same thing with Klei Cheres. Nobody borrows the earthenware kelim of Amaretz. Nothing you can do with it. You can't be toivelit. So when we consider these things to be tar, la'atzme tiharnu, it only benefits the amoritz. The chaver, the fellow who keeps higher standards, won't be affected, won't be adversely affected by this halacha, because in any case he doesn't borrow these items. Aval netaras a kli shatarasi shetiarta l'chavaloi. But how can we be metar? How can we consider a metal utensil to be protected in this manner? By doing so, we are really affecting you as well, because you're going to borrow that kli from the amoritz. Shetihartoi l'chavaloi, or shetaharasoi l'chavaloi. The tahara affected, the tahara status applied to the mental kli affects not just him, it affects you and him, because that's something you borrow from him. Okay, the Gemara will soon elaborate further, but this is the first response. This is the way Beis Shammai responded to Beis Hillel. We consider the kli of the amoritz to be tummy. It's not a proper barrier. It's not a proper protector. So it can't protect metal kelim. Because if we'll say that it's protected, we're going to be machshel the chaver when he comes to borrow his kelim. So bottom line is we see that the chaver borrows kelim from the amoritz. Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, let's proceed with this debate. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yeshua, boishni midivrechem Beis Shammai. You know what? I'm embarrassed from your words, Beis Shammai. How can this be? Isn't this a standing contradiction? You're telling me that the kli protects from one thing and doesn't protect for the other. It protects for food and drink and kli cheres, but not for other kelim. Efshe isha lo shebareva. Can it be so that an isha is sitting and kneading dough in this bowl on the second floor of the house, and the isha v'areva tmei, the woman and the kli are tamei, because the kli cheres situated between the floors won't protect the isha and the areva, right? The tmei and shiva, they're tamei for 7 days, as though they came into contact with the tumah that's on the first floor that shoots all the way up and affects them. Ubatzak tar, and the food inside, the dough inside the bowl remains tar. How can that be? Isn't that a stira minei ubei? Another example, loigen malei mashkin. You have a container filled with liquid sitting on the second floor. Loigen tamei to mashiva, so the container, a wooden container, metal container, gets tumas shiva. It's affected by the mace down on floor 1. And the content of that kli, the liquid, remains tar. How can that be? Isn't that the strangest thing? Says Rabbi Yehuda to Beis Shammai, I'm embarrassed from your words. How can you say shalacha? Nitfaloi Talmud echad, mitalmid Beis Shammai. One of the Talmidim of Beis Shammai approaches Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei, he tells him, would you allow me to explain it to you? Should I explain to you the Talmud shel Beis Shammai? Want me to explain to you? Amar lo, so Rabbi Yehuda says, Adarab, Amar, please be my guest. Amar lo, so the Talmud asks Rabbi Yehuda, let me ask you a question. Kli tummy, chaytitz or chaytitz? Let's say kli is really tummy. Can it protect from tumah? Is it chaytitz? Does it present that barrier, or chaytitz, or is it an ineffective protector? Amar lo chaytitz. Of course, it can't protect. Next question. Kli shel amoritz, a kli that belongs to amoritz, tummy or tar? Is it deemed to be tummy or tar? Amar lo tummy. She says tummy, of course. The Talmud continues. Let's say the chaver tells that amoritz, you know, your kli is considered tummy. Klu mashgiach alecha. Does he pay any attention to you? He throws you out the door. What are you talking about? My kli is tummy, your kli is tummy. Not only that, if you even suggest that his kli is tummy, he tells you, shali tar, my kli is tar, v'shalcha tummy, yours is tummy. Right? V'zeu taman shel Beis Shammai. Says the Talmud, you want to know something? I'll tell you a secret. This very point that I just suggested to you, that I just presented to you, that is the reason for Beis Shammai's halacha. So Rashi and Tosfos both explain like this. Rashi explains it one way, Tosfos adds like this. We are concerned about a chaver misusing the kelim of the amoritz, using his kelim thinking that it's tar. So we want to protect the chaver, right? That's what we're trying to do. That's our ultimate goal. The Amaretz himself, he does his own thing. We're trying to protect the integrity of the chaver, right? So the Chachamim came up with this wonderful formula. They said like this: you should know. Everybody should know. This is a universal halacha. A kli cheres only affects a partial protection. It can only protect from food, drink. It can only protect food, drink, and kli cheres. Why? Because we're concerned about the kli cheres that's forming that protection, that's blocking the tumah from rising into the second floor, or blocking the tumah from entering its own self. We're concerned that that kli might be a kli of ha'aretz, which is tummy, which is an ineffective barrier, ineffective protector, right? So on account of that scenario, Chachamim established a blanket rule. You should know kli cheres never protects never forms a protection for the following items: food, drink, or kli cheres. You know why? Because in any case, nobody borrows that from the Amoritz. Nobody takes that from the Amoritz. You can't do anything with this food, drink, or kli cheres. You can't be toivel, food, drink, or kli cheres. You have to break the kli cheres. Food and drink doesn't have tara at all. So nobody partakes in those items from Amoritz. So therefore they said, you know what? Let's consider them to be tar. Because in any case, the chaver won't take it. Not only that, if we pull the string too much and we say, well, kli cheres doesn't protect anything, well, the Amaretz won't listen to us. He won't listen to us. So we gave him that. We said, you know what? Every kli cheres can protect food, drink, or kli cheres. Because in any case, it won't present a pitfall for the chaver. Leave it alone. But, listen to this chap. A kli cheres cannot protect a wooden kli, a metal kli. Why? Why do we say that? Because we're concerned that the kli will belong to Amaretz. Kli cheres that's protecting the wooden kli belongs to Amaretz. That kli cheres, which is tummy, can't do a chatzitza, can't protect because it's a kli tummy. And then the chaver next day will come and borrow that wooden kli, not realizing that it was an oil hameis, and the Amaretz won't tell him anything. He'll just use it. He'll use it betuma. So we say, you know what? Every kli cheres does not form a chatzitza, does not form a barrier, is not an effective protector for kalim, wooden, metal kalim. And the Amaretz doesn't realize that this halacha was directed at him. This halacha was created because of the concern that the Amaretz's kli is going to be the one protecting, and the Amaretz's kli is an effective protector because it's tummy. He won't realize that. He won't realize that it's directed at him. He'll think it's a universal halacha, and it really is. Chacham established it as a universal blanket, wall-to-wall halacha. You should know a kli cheres is an ineffective protector when it comes to kalim, wooden kalim, metal kalim, which chaver and baruch in the Amaretz. So Amaretz is not aware of the rationale behind the halacha. He just knows it's a halacha. He won't ask questions, and therefore, when a chaver comes to borrow his wooden kli or his metal kli, he'll know to tell him, well, you know, this wasn't inside a kli cheres, inside a oil hameis, it wasn't protected. They won't take it. The Amaretz doesn't take it personally. He'll think it's just a general halacha. He'll be careful to either inform the chaver. He'll be careful to not run into such a situation. If it runs into a situation, he'll be matar the wooden kli, the metal kli. So this ensures the integrity of the chaver's kalim. This protects the chaver from unknowingly borrowing a tameh kli from the Amaretz. And the Amaretz will go along with it because it was a limited halacha pertaining to wooden kalim, to metal kalim. But when it comes to other things, food, drink, and kli cheres, we say that even a kli cheres can protect and form a chatzitza from the mace. V'zeo tamen shel Beis Shammai. Now you understand Beis Shammai's reason? It was hard to understand, right? We still said, what do you mean? A kli cheres sitting inside a skylight only blocks the tumah from reaching the food, drink, or kli cheres upstairs, but doesn't block it from reaching other kelim. How could that be? Is it an effective protector or not? The answer is, it depends. If it's a proper kli, a kli tar, of course it protects, it blocks. It blocks it from reaching anything. We're concerned about a kli of Amaretz, which is considered tummy. So we had to concoct some sort of plan, some sort of scheme, which will ensure that the chaver who borrow kelim from the Amaretz will be protected. And they only borrow wooden kelim, metal kelim, which can be toivled. That's just the way it is. They don't borrow other kelim. You never know what happened to the other kelim. Once it gets tummy, once there's no tahar, they don't touch those kelim. Food and drink, they don't touch those things. So therefore Chacham established a general halacha that a klicheres can only protect food, drink, or other klicheres, but cannot protect regular kelim. This way the Amaretz will be careful, or he'll inform the chaver that this metal kli, this wooden kli, was in such a situation, it became tummy. And the chaver will keep away from it, or will be table it. Hearing this, Rabbi Yehoshua, hearing this wonderful pshat, he changed his mind. He changed his attitude. He regretted the fact that he spoke so harshly. Miyad halach Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua went v'nishtateach al kirei Beis Shammai, and he went to lie down on the kvarim of Beis Shammai. What does kirei Beis Shammai mean? Maybe it was some of the more prominent Talmidim of Beis Shammai, or it means that he went to the cave where the Talmidim of Beis Shammai were buried, and he went there and he asked Mechila v'amar nanesi lachem. I spoke too harshly against you. At sameis, the bones of Beis Shammai. Umas tumish lachem kach. Look, if the hidden halachas, the ones that were not properly explained, turn out to be so wonderful and clear, certainly the ones that were explained properly, of course they're so beautiful. I regret having spoken so harshly against you. Amru, the following was said on Rabbi Yehoshua, Kol Yamav, throughout his lifetime, Hushcharu Shinav V'pnei Tani Yosef. His teeth got blackened as a result of his multiple fastings to do teshuvah for what he said. In any case, having said all this, bottom line is Ketane Mias. In any rate, we just said L'chavalai, that when it comes to kalim, wooden kalim, metal utensils, the halacha applied to those utensils affect L'chavalai, affect you and him. Alma Shalina Menayu. It's pretty clear from this mission that we borrow kalim from an Amaretz. If that's the case, let's go back to Amar Aleph. Kli b'teich kli. We allow tefillah kli b'teich kli when it comes to things other than kachim. What do you mean? Amaretz might be watching you. It might do the same with his kalim. In his case, it might be an ineffective tefillah because it was so tightly stacked, etc. Then you go and you borrow that kli and use it for truma or for chulin. You're not realizing that it's tamei. Ki shalina minayu matbilinalu. Very pashut. When you borrow, you table it. You don't rely on his testimony. You table it. Tesis Amar Alpha actually asks. He says, "Tzarachin odi havamina." Of course, you table the kelim of Amaretz. You never know what happened to it, so you table it. In any case, that's the teres of the Gemara. Of course, we borrow, we table it. Says the Gemara, Ihachi, if you table that kelim, nihadrulu beis Hillel beis Shammai. So when Beis Shammai say, we apply this selective, halacha because we're concerned about the chava borrowing. What do you mean? Let him borrow and you table it. So Beis Hillel can respond to Beis Shammai, ki shalinan minayu, when we borrow the kelim from the Amaretz, matbelinalu, aren't we table it? So what's the concern? Answers the Gemara, yeah, that only helps for a low-level tumah, a rishon, a sheni, then the kli can become tar through tefillah. But here we're speaking about a mace, right? There was a mace in the home, and the kli became tummy, tumas mace. Tummy mace, boy azova, hazah, gimel hazayin. In that case, you have to spray the paraduma water on it. Third day, seventh day, umana lezayin yomi loy mushli inshi. Typically, you don't borrow a kli for 7 days, which doesn't allow you to go through the entire process of tahara from tumas mace. So to avoid that situation, we established a formula which protects and ensures proper tahara for kalim that will be given over to the chaver. Asks the Gemara. Okay, it's like sort of a run-on Gemara. Go to the next topic. So you mean to say that the Amaretz are typically not trusted when it comes to tefillas kalim? Tefillah loy mehemni? Vatanya ne'emanan Amaretz al taras tefillas tmei meis. Amaretz is believed. He's trusted. He says that his kli was not didn't become tummy through a mace. Amar Abaye, depends what he's speaking about, himself or a kli. Like kasha, habegufay, habekelev. On his own personal body, his own personal self, that stands more prominently in the eyes of the Amoritz. He's very careful with that. He's trusted. He's to be believed. He says, I didn't touch a mace. But his keli, he doesn't pay attention to his keli. The only way to use the kli of Amoritz is by being toivlet, or by being do hazah, gimel v'zayin, if there's a chashash of tumas mace. Rava Amar, idivid v'kelev. You know what? Both discussions, our discussion and the Brisa, are speaking about the kelim of the Amoritz. So do we believe him or not? We say we don't, and the Brisa seems to indicate that he is Neman. Like kasha, depends what he is claiming. If he says, you know what, I never did a kli inside a kli. I just never did that. So he's trusted. When we say that the Amoritz is not to be trusted when it comes to Tfilas Kelim, that's if he says, look, I stacked Kelim. I put one aside the other, but I was careful. The mouth of the outer kli should be wide enough, should be sufficiently wide to create that proper, effective connection between the water outside and inside. So the Amoritz is not, he's not deliberately misleading us. He's just not learned. He's not well versed in these halachas. So you never know what really happened. He thinks it was wide enough, but it wasn't. So he's not to be believed. But if he's saying, look, I never did that. I always do one kli at a time. I take my time. One kli at a time, he's believed. Tanya, we find a similar halacha in the following brisa. It depends what he's claiming. Ne'eman Amoritz lema piris lo yichshuru. An Amoritz is to be trusted if he says, look, I know for a fact that these piris never got wet, never became huchshel l'kabel tumah. He's believed. Aval eina ne'eman lema piris huchshuru aval lo nitmu. But if he claims that they got huchshel, they got wet, but I'm telling you, they never became tumah. He doesn't know what tumah. He's not well versed. He's not an expert, so you can't trust him. So we see this chiluk between what he's claiming. So factual stuff he's believed on, but halachic stuff he's not believed on. Now back to Abaye, who tells us that on the Amoritz's guf he has ne'emanos. He's to be trusted on his own guf. Tanya, chaver shebola hazois. If a fellow who keeps higher standards, comes to the Beis Hamikdash, comes to the Paraduma center, he wants to get hazah of Mei Paradum. He says, look, I'm holding on day 3, right? Because you have to wait. It's a 7-day process. You get hazah on day 3 and day 7. He says, look, I'm holding at day 3. We believe him. Mazan olav miyad, he gets immediate hazah. He's to be trusted. As opposed to Amoritz, Shabbat hazas, he comes along. Ein mazan olav ad sheyase b'fanenu shlishi yishvi. We can't apply the paraduma water until he actually counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in front of us. So even when it comes to his guf, you see he's not believed. Ela Rabbi, I'll tell you why he's believed in the case of tefillah. You see, for this very reason, we're going to believe him when it comes to the tefillah. What does this mean? Since you're giving him a hard time when it comes to hazah, you make him count over. You have to start over. 1, 2, 3. So he takes it very seriously. So when he comes and he says, look, I did tefillah. I did a proper tefillah. You know, after the hazah, I did tefillah. We trust him because he doesn't want to go through his whole thing again. He gave him such a hard time that increases his focus. It makes him more serious, more cognizant of what has to be done. He doesn't want to have to go through this thing again. So this increased awareness allows us to really believe and have an emunus to the Amoritz when it comes to tefillah of tumas meis. Okay. So far what we learned, we went back to the Mishnah where we discussed the halacha of being matbel kli b'toich kli. So the Mishnah says when it comes to kachim you can't do it. And the reason was because the Amoritz might be watching him and might do the same thing. And might not do a proper tefillah. And we have no choice but to accept kodesh material from the Amoritz. So therefore we enacted a halacha. We established that when it comes to kachim, we're careful not to do kli b'toich kli, to avoid this type of situation. what's wrong with Kli B'Toich Kli? We have Rabbi Ila, who says there's a Chatzitza concern. We have Rabbi, who says concerns that the outside Kli might not be wide enough, might not have the shear of Shesheres HaNoid in its opening. And therefore, says the Gemara, if it's a large basket, a salvig, a grisni, who never have that concern, then it's okay. Or if the outer Kli is also tummy, in which case you're being told the outer and the inner Kli together, it's considered one package deal, one masa tefillah, like one Kli. So it works irrespective of whether or not the outer Kli's mouth is wide enough. Okay, we concluded with the sugi of the ne'emanos for the Amaretz when it comes to tefillah. Abaye tells us when it comes to his guf, he's ne'eman. The reason was because we make it so hard for him, he's very careful. According to Rav, even by a Kli, his ne'eman, provided he tells us factually, he says, look, I never did Kli B'Toich Kli. I always take my time, I do one Kli at a time. So in that case, it's not a question of knowledge or expertise. It's a factual thing. He says, look, I never did Kli B'Toich Kli, we believe him. Acharayim B'Toich Beit HaSvita. This is the next chumrah in the Mishnah, the next ma'ala. So you have a Kli which became tummy. The Kli has various segments to it. It has the inside, the toich, has the echarayim, the back, which you use as well, has a beis hatzvita, which you're going to see soon. That's a place where you grab hold of it, has some sort of inverted handle. So if the Kli became tummy, we separate different mekaymes. When it comes to using the Kli for truma, we apply this kula and we say, look, only this part became tummy, not the other part. When it comes to kachim, we don't differentiate. It's one big package deal. It's one big Kli. My acharayim v'toich. What does this mean that it has acharayim v'toich? Kedasnan Kli shenit ma'achar v'mashkin. So mashkin over here is not metama midaraisa. We're speaking about wine, oil, which are, let's say, a rishon l'tumah. So it can't really affect the Kli. Rather, it's only Tamei Midrabanan. We're concerned about the mashka, zav, zava, which are considered avatumah, that can be Matamei Kli. So since this Kli only acquired Tumah Dirabanan, we allow for this distinction. Achayr of Tmein, the back is Tamei, but Toichai, the inside, the Oignai, the lip area, Oznai, some sort of like an air, like a roundish handle, V'yodav is a long handle, Tahirin, they remain Tar, because only the Achirayim of the Kli becomes Tami, everything else remains Tar. We sort of split the use of the Kli. We have separate usages in the Kli, separate areas of use, we split it. Nitma, Toicha, but let's say the interior becomes Tami, Kulei, Tami, everything is Tami, because the interior is the primary usage area of the Kli. When that becomes Tami, everything gets included. And again, this only applies to Truma. When it comes to Kachim or Machmer, we treat it as one big unit. So, how many elements do we have in a Kli? Acharayim, Toich, we have Eugen, Eisen, Yodav, we have a Beis HaTzvita. What is that? My Beis HaTzvita. We have two pshatim. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Makam Shet Soifte. Rashi says, the place where you are Eiches Boy, Umoshita Lachem. That's the place where you grab hold of it in order to hand it to somebody else. This was what Boyaz grabbed hold of a couple of kernels there, and he handed it to Rus. So it's a place where you grab to hand over. Some sort of inverted area on the side of the Kli. That's considered a separate usage area. Rav Asya and Rav Yechanan has a different gears in the Mishnah. Instead of Beis HaTzvita with a tes, it's Beis HaTzvi'ah with an ayin. Makam sheneki adas soivin. So neki adas are these finicky, sensitive people. Where do they dip their food? Where do they put their mayonnaise, their mustard? Not on their regular plate. So they put it inside some sort of indentation inside this Kli sitting there. That's where they dip their food. Tani Rav Bivi Kameder Nachman Kol HaKelim Ein Lehem Acharayim V'Toich. We don't separate between Acharayim and Toich. Echad Kachei HaMikdash, Echad Kachei HaGvul, whether it applies to Karbonis in the Mikdash or things which are called Kachei HaGvul. Once one area becomes Tamei, it's all-inclusive. It affects the entire Kli. Normally, Rav Nachman asks him, Kachei HaGvul Ma'inin. What do you mean Kachei HaGvul? Truma? Truma, which is Kodesh and eaten throughout all the boundaries, throughout the entire Klal Yisrael. The Mishnah says otherwise. When it comes to truma, we differentiate between the different aspects of the kli. Maybe when you said the word kachei agvul, you didn't mean truma. Truma is exempted from this stringency. You meant chulin, which was looked after like kachim. So they used to do that. They used to try to get accustomed to keeping higher standards. So sometimes they used to take regular chulin and look after it like kachim. And the same halacha is applied to this type of item as well. And that's what you meant. Kachei agvul means chulin which are found outside the mikdash, which were treated to this higher standards. At karta milsa, so he tells him, look, I guess it was Rabbi Abai respond, yeah, actually, you remind me of something. The Amar Rabba Baravua Achas, maybe it was Nachman saying it, Achas Esrei Malus Shanukan. The truth is that there are 11 stringencies mentioned in the Mishnah. Sheish Rishonis, the first 6, apply to both things, Bein LeKodesh, whether Mamish Kodesh, or Bein LeChulish Nasa Teres HaKodesh. Right? Exactly as we just said. That this chumrah, which is number 2 in the Mishnah, right, applies to kachim or to kachei gvul, which we interpret to be referring to chulish nasal taras hakodesh. Acharoines, but the last 5 elements in the Mishnah, which are not as severe as we learned yesterday, because they don't really relate to tumah deraisa. So that's only lekodesh, mamish karbonis, avaloi lechulin. Shanasu Ataras HaKodesh has pretty much supported his pshat that when we say there's no chiluk between Acharayim, Techen, and etc. pertaining to Kachim and Kachei Gvul is referring to Chul and Shanasu Ataras HaKodesh. Okay, let's do a quick chazar of today's daf. We discussed the first 2 halachas mentioned in the Mishnah. One is that you're not matbel kli b'teich kli when it comes to Kachim. When it comes to truma, we're okay with that. We gave 2 reasons. Either the concern is chatzitza, or the concern is that he might inadvertently do the tefillah of a kli b'teich kli when the outer kli is too narrow to allow for that. The opening of the outer kli is not wide enough to allow for a proper flow, for a proper connection between the mikvah and the water within it. That's a problem. We only apply to truma, not to kachim. Only to kachim, not to truma. The reason is the Amaretz might be looking at him and imitating him. And we have no choice but to accept kachim from the Amaretz. Therefore, we avoid the situation by avoiding this type of tefillah by kachim altogether. By truma, we're not concerned, because even if the Amaretz imitates him, we don't accept truma from the Amaretz. We do, however, borrow kelim from the Amaretz. But in that case, we'll just be tovel it again. Does Amaretz have ne'emanos when it comes to tefillah, according to Abaye? For gufa, yes. But not kli. Rava says it depends. Sometimes by the kli as well, if he claims never to have ran into problematic situations. When it comes to the second halacha, acharayim v'toicha beis hatzvita, that too only applies to kachim and not to truma. But as the Gemara concludes, it applies to kachim as well as to chulin shanasu ataras hakodesh. Haslachas Rabbi and Pesuras Tevis.